All right, I'm going to try to show you where to position the hole for the bean bags to fall into. So this is our top board. Your board might look a little different than this. But this board is 30 inches long by 15 and 7/8 wide. So I'm going to try to find a mark over here. I'm going to go down 9 inches and make a mark. It doesn't matter from which end, but only do one end. And then I'm going to measure over 7 and 15/16 and make a mark. So now I have a center point, and I'll bring this up to kind of show you what I have. So it's just a little crosshair that shows me where the center of this circle is going to be. So then I'm going to set up my compass, and there might be a couple different compasses that you have. And one of them that you have may be, I have a style where you hook a pencil right on. So this is a compass, and the style that I'm using has a piece of lead in it already. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to set this at half of the diameter. So the diameter is 6 inches on this. So the radius is half the diameter. So really easy math, right? So it's 3 inches. So I'm going to take this and set this up 3 inches wide. So because of the blade on the tape measure, it makes it kind of hard to do that. So I'm just going to put it on the 1, and I'm going to measure it out 3 inches from the 1. And where my crosshair is, that's where the point's going to go. And then the pencil, I'm going to go around it like so. So sometimes you have to go around more than once. I try to angle the compass just a little bit, and sometimes that makes the pencil work just a little better. But give yourself a nice dark circle of what you're trying to do. So although this is a miniature cornhole board, the hole size is going to be the same as a real board. So that way, you know, you will get good at, you'll be even better. If the board's bigger, you're going to do even better. So these boards will be nice because you can carry them around a little more. They're a little more easy to transport. So my goal now is to get this piece out. For that, I'm going to use a spade bit. So this is a spade bit. It's a different kind of bit we haven't used before. It's nice and flat. It doesn't really have to be a spade bit, just a bit that's fairly large in diameter. One thing that makes, when you're drilling a hole through plywood or any kind of wood all the way through, it helps if you put a backer board. So I just grabbed a piece of scrap. I'm putting that underneath here. And then that will kind of help out with what's called tear out. So I'm going to try to put this at the top. I don't want to go past my pencil mark. Okay, but I'm just going to kind of drill a hole right here. And I could feel it break through, so then I stopped. So you see there wasn't much tear out on the back side. It's because I had that backer board on there. Now let me demonstrate without the backer board and just show you the difference with the tear out. Try not to drill into the table. I'm going to do this side over here. The drill bit might be warm, so be careful touching it. Okay, so there's the difference. You can kind of see what a difference that makes. That backer board really makes a much cleaner hole. And it's worth finding a piece out of the trash to do this.
So then I'm going to go with this board here for this hole. Now you probably don't have to quite do 4 holes like this, but I think 4 holes will make the next step a little easier for you. So now I'm going to hang this over.
Alright, I have this hung over the side of the table. I'm making sure there's nothing underneath where I'm going to cut. I have 2 clamps on here so it's nice and secure. And I just moved the whole camera. Anyway, so I'm going to use the saber saw for this. Remember, if both hands are on the top of the saber saw, you can't cut your hand. So there should not be any hands over here. You don't have a friend holding this for you. You're using clamps, okay? And my goal is going to be to start at a hole and make my way to the next one. So I'm trying to follow that curve. And it really should work out pretty good if you take your time. So you're going to squeeze the trigger pretty far, so it has quite a bit of speed. But I'm going to go nice and slow with my feet. So I'm going to start on the
Okay,
Now to help me sand this, I'm going to find something round. I just grabbed a glue bottle for this. Obviously make sure the glue's shut so you don't get glue all over there and don't wreck the glue bottle. But I'm just going to go around this, okay, and try to clean up some of my spots. Okay, try to make it a little bit better. And spend a couple minutes doing that. Take your time, try to make that a little bit better. You can also use a file. So you might want to find a round file. So this file here is half round on one side. So you can take that. This is where I did the worst, right over here. I can see quite a bit of my line. So I'm going to come over here and work on that section. When you're using a file, if you use both hands, it tends to work a little bit better. Okay, and that will kind of help you out. So I'm going to go ahead and make this the best it can be. Spend a little time on that, trying to clean it up. Even using some hand sanding in there will really help out. You don't want that to cut or damage your bean bags. So our goal here now is to build a frame that this board can fit on, okay, to help make it stronger, give it the support for the legs and things like that. So it's just going to be 4 pieces that we're going to connect to make that frame. So one way we can make that a little bit easier, I don't know exactly the thickness or the size of your materials that you're going to use for this, okay? It just kind of depends on what you end up with. But a good way to do this is, if this is, 15 7/8 across here, these are already cut these 2 to length. So remember, your board's 32 inches long, so I already cut these 2 pieces at 30 inches, so they're nice and long, and they're the exact same length as this piece, okay? So I'm just going to take my 15 7/8 and line these up with this, and it's going to do the math for me. So look how I do this. This is a really cool way to do this quickly and easily. I'm going to go this direction so it's not upside down. Alright, so I'm going to put it at 15 7/8, and then I just look over and it automatically measures it for me. It looks like it is 12 9/16, so about 12 1/2 is where I need to cut these at. Or not these exact boards, but my next 2 pieces of frame. So that's a good way to measure that. And I'm just going to check my math one more time. So yeah, 12 1/2 looks pretty good. So I'm just going to cut those at 12 1/2. I'd like to show you how to make the legs now. So this is a 15-degree angle. So if I put the protractor down here and I put my pencil there, it's at 75. So 75, take that from 90, gives us a 15-degree angle. Now this part's always a little harder when you transfer an angle down onto, the piece you're working with. I'm looking at this intersection here. I'm making sure it's square with this or flush with that edge. And I'm going to put this at 75. So I'm lining it up here and here. I did 65. So 75 is right about there. All right, and then I give myself a mark. And then I give myself an entire mark. So that's how I use the protractor to transfer my angle. So now I would cut this piece now while this is really long. All right, and then I can measure over for the next piece. So this is 7 3/4. So after I cut that, I can hook my tape measure on the end, mark it at 7 3/4. And then I can use my square to draw a nice line there, and then to cut that off. So first I cut this, then I measure over and cut that. And then I need to put a radius on it. So this radius is going to allow the leg to fold up. All right, so we need that radius there for this to work. So what I'm trying to do with the radius is I'm just trying to find the center here. So 1/2 inch and 3/4 is about 7/8. All right, well, it is 7/8, but it was just a touch smaller than that. So then I measure this way 7/8. Then I have my intersection. So I went 7/8 this way, 7/8 this way. I'm gonna grab my compass. All right, I gotta make sure I'm doing the right corner. So this is my good one that I already did. I'm gonna set this up on the edge of the board here. And I'm gonna go across. I have a little too big right now. All right, so there's my radius. So I'm just trying to keep this flat and that flat. I'm just trying to knock off that corner. So that way, when you fold the leg up, it will fold nice. Okay, so that you could just take off on the disc sander. Shouldn't be that hard to do. Alright, so now my goal is to drill a hole to connect this leg to the frame. So the leg's going to pivot like this, right? And we want to drill that hole now because it's going to turn out a lot better than trying to drill it after we put the frame together. So I'm going to measure down this piece 6.5 inches. And this board right here is the longer 30-inch piece for our frame that we have. And then I can take some tape and I can just tape this leg down. I'm still good. I mean, the tape's not really going to act as a clamp very much, but it will secure it a little bit. So that way when I go to drill it, it will turn out maybe just a little better. So I just put a little tape on here. It's nice and flat. Now my goal is to drill that hole all the way through. Alright, so this is a 1/4 inch drill bit in the drill press. I have the longer end going this way, so if it does catch on me, it's going to swing over here and hit me. Instead of having the longer end this way, to where if it catches, it's going to come over here and hit me. It's going this way. So I'm lining it up with the crosshairs I made, and my goal is just to drill this all the way through. You might have to pick up and down a little bit on the drill press. So as I go down, I might have to pick up a little, see how it clears the shavings. I'm trying not to cross my arms. Notice I'm not crossing my arms, and I just drill all the way through that spot. Before I screw the frame together, I put the legs on just to see if I have them nice and flush right here, because now will be a really easy time to alter the legs. Plus it makes sure that I have the legs going the right way and I didn't flip something over. So I just clamped one piece of this frame member down and positioned the legs with just any length of bolt right now. It doesn't have to be the right size. I just want to see that when these fold up, it's going to be flush right here, and then that they're not sticking out. So this should be nice and flat, and this should fold up. So now I can assemble my frame. I'm trying to make sure this stays up. So I'm just going to write top right here, because I want to make sure I keep the orientation the same. So I wrote top on these, and that way I don't get those mixed up, and I know that's the right way up. So now I'm going to connect the frame. Alright, so now I have all my 4 frame members cut to length, and now I'm trying to screw them together. So I just used a clamp here to clamp this down to my board. Obviously it's going to go on the other side, or this could be the back, but I'm just trying to screw together these joints. Another clamp you could use is this one. These work really good. So you're just going to squeeze up right here, and it can make some adjustments, and then this one makes a fine adjustment. So you loosen this first. This has to be loose, so there's a lot of thread here. And then squeeze this, and it will extend that down. So I could put this, I could lay this kind of sideways like this, and it's really going to help me hold that together while I'm putting this screw on. I do the same for the other side too. So now, if I just try to put a screw in here, it's not going to go very well, okay? I need to pre-drill first. So I grabbed a small drill bit, and this one is about the size, the diameter of the shank of the screw. So if I line them up like this, see how these screw threads stick out just a little bit beyond the drill bit? That's good, because we don't want the hole so big that these threads don't do anything. So we want the drill bit smaller than the screw. So now we put it in the drill bit in the drill, and we're trying to get it to where it's about the length of the screw or a little bit less. And then I'm going to line it up. I'm going in a half inch from the corner on both directions. So I'm going to drill through. All right, and if it doesn't move at all, I can drill my next hole. But I don't want to, I want to be really careful here. These little drill bits are really easy to break off, so when you're drilling, you're trying to go nice and straight, and you don't want to twist the drill because they will break off. All right, so now I'm going to grab my driver bit. We're going to use that nice square driver bit before. Now we're going to use some longer screws. So these screws still are just a little bit on the short side, but I think they'll probably work. They are 2 1/4 inches. I might find some a little longer for you. So I might try to find some deck screws that are a little longer, but for right this minute, I'm going to use these ones and see how these hold. So I'm going to go slow on the trigger, but I'm pushing really hard on the back of the drill. And I'm trying not to let it do that click, click, okay? Because that's going to just wear it out. And then I'm going to put one more in. All right, now I can take my clamp off and see how that went for me. All right, and I want to show you how I staggered these. So that gives it a lot more strength by staggering them. Notice they're not going on the edges, because if it gets on if the screw's too close, the edge is going to split. So these are both in about a ½ inch. So this one's down a half and over a half, and that one's up a half and then over a half from where that other board is. So take your time laying this out. You're not in a rush. You're just trying to do a really good job. All right, so I'm putting this board on now. I'm putting the board on the frame. I just chose some flathead nails. They're like 1.5 inch flathead nails, and I pounded them in. I used a nail punch a little bit just to sink the nail below the surface. So I hit the nail punch with a hammer, obviously, to drive it below the surface. And I put those about every 10 inches around the perimeter of this. I measured them in about 1 inch. And that way, if you don't want to go in too far, then you split out that way. You definitely don't want to go on this edge. Having them below the surface will help keep it from the bean bags from catching. So this board isn't super smooth, but I did take some time and sand the edges. I just rolled the sander around it. And then I rolled the sander through here, hand sanded quite a bit to try to make that a little bit better. I think once we get the paint on here, this will be quite a bit smoother. And you know, it's okay if it's not smooth as glass because this board's already quite small. So if it's a little bit rougher, that might give you a little bit of a handicap to make up for the level of difficulty you're already going to have. But I think a couple coats of paint will really help that become a lot smoother to make that better. So I got the leg on the back now. I put this beam in to connect the two legs. So I just put a screw through the side to connect those legs. I had to pre-drill again because remember, it's pretty hard to put in a full-length deck screw without pre-drilling first. Then I drove the bolt in. This is a carriage bolt. I might use a hex bolt too. Then I put a washer and a nut on the end of it. So this should freely move back and forth. I cut this board at 9 inches long, and that gave me a little bit of gap on each side because that will reduce the friction so it actually works. So now, you know, I should be able to flip the leg down, and I should have this thing be able to stand up. So I have about the angle I'm looking for. The only thing you can do next besides painting it, you can make some type of scoreboard on the side or come up with some creative way to keep score. Sometimes they make like a little stand to keep score, but here you go. There's a miniature cornhole game all ready to to go. Just need some paint.